This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Dido-Ewart. It's Thursday, March 25th. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. We begin in East Africa, where Kenyan authorities have given the United Nations Refugee Agency an ultimatum to come up with a plan for the closure of 2 camps that are home to hundreds of thousands of refugees from neighboring Somalia. Lucy Fielder of Reuters has more.
Kenya has ordered the closure of 2 sprawling camps that are home to hundreds of thousands of refugees from neighbouring Somalia. In a tweet, the East African country's Interior Ministry said it had given the United Nations Refugee Agency 2 weeks to draw up a plan for the closure of the Dadaab and Kakuma camps. They were established 3 decades ago and host more than 410,000 people, a small proportion of whom are from South Sudan. The ministry added that there was no room for further talks on the issue. Kenya first announced its intention to shut Dadaab, once the world's largest refugee camp, in 2016, citing security concerns. 2 intelligence reports had indicated that elements from within the camp were involved in 2 large attacks on Kenyan soil. But that plan was blocked by the High Court, which called the move unconstitutional. Now authorities have told the UNHCR that it will take refugees to Somalia's border if camps are not closed. That's according to Kenya's Daily Nation newspaper, in a report that the Interior Ministry called accurate. The UNHCR has urged Kenya to ensure that those who need protection continue to get it, and pledged to keep engaging in dialogue. Kenya's move comes as relations with Somalia worsen. Mogadishu cut diplomatic ties in December, accusing Nairobi of interfering in its internal affairs. The pair are also facing off at the International Court of Justice in a maritime boundary dispute. Somali authorities did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Kenya's Interior Ministry said the move to close the camps was not related to diplomatic difficulties.
That was Lucy Fielder of Reuters reporting. The humanitarian group Doctors Without Borders said Wednesday its staff saw Ethiopian government troops shoot and kill 4 men they forced off a civilian bus on a road in the embattled region of Tigray. Doctors Without Borders said in a statement that the killings on Tuesday followed the apparent ambush of an Ethiopian military convoy by an armed group. It said 3 MSF staff members were able to witness the alleged extrajudicial killings because they were traveling ahead of the 2 public minibuses that were stopped by soldiers on the road from Mekelle, the regional capital, to the city of Adigrat. The shortest shipping route from Europe to Asia remained blocked on Thursday as 10 tugboats struggled to free one of the world's largest container ships after it ran aground in the Suez Canal. The 400-meter, 224,000-ton Ever Given ran aground on Tuesday morning after losing the ability to steer amid high winds and a dust storm, according to the Suez Canal Authority. Francesca Lena of Reuters has more.
The Suez Canal is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. About 12% of world trade by volume passes through the man-made channel connecting Europe and Asia. So, a traffic jam like the one caused by the 224,000-ton Ever Given container ship is rather a big problem, and could have a major impact on the global flow of oil and gas. Nearly 19,000 ships passed through the canal during 2020. That's an average of 51.5 ships per day. All that traffic adds up to about 1.17 billion tonnes, all squeezing through the man-made channel. Giant tankers and container ships carry everything from crude oil and refined products to finished goods like electronics and toys. The Suez Canal is also a major source of hard currency for Egypt. The country raked in $5.6 billion in tolls in 2020, despite global trade disruption elsewhere. The 120-mile-long canal separates the African continent from Asia. It also provides the shortest sea link between Asia and Europe and the lands lying around the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. The first waterway was dug over 3,500 years ago, but significant enhancements came in the 19th century to link the Mediterranean with the Red Sea via the River Nile.
President Nasser announced that Egypt had taken over the Suez Canal, the international waterway of which Britain has been a large shareholder since Israel's dramatic...
In 1956, Egypt nationalised the canal, prompting shareholders Britain and France, along with Israel, to invade. The Suez Crisis only ended after Egypt sank 40 ships in the channel, and the US, Soviet Union and UN intervened, forcing Britain, France and Israel to withdraw. The state-owned Suez Canal Authority was established in July 1956 and still runs the waterway. In June 1967, Egypt and some other Arab states fought Israel in what became known as the Six-Day War. The canal was very badly damaged in fighting and remained...
Doctors don't know what to do to save patients. It's the worst moment of the pandemic.
We're in a very difficult scenario because we don't know exactly what awaits us. Each day looks worse than the last.
São Paulo, Brazil's largest city, is on the same path. 9 out of 10 intensive care units are already occupied, the highest level of the pandemic. A large number of sick patients have been dying without being seen by a doctor. Outside hospitals, day and night, families wait for days for any news.
I brought my wife here to the hospital. I don't know how she is. I ask God that she get out of this, but it's hard. I feel very upset. It's a virus that is decimating families. My father, my sister, my son and my wife, all of them with COVID.
Trying to contain the chaos, São Paulo and other capitals decided to close businesses, but it hasn't worked. Much of the population is not staying home. Many people still need to go out to work. It is a difficult decision in a country that is fighting poverty daily. The choice is protect yourself or go hungry.
It's been very difficult for people who work on the street. People criticize me, but I'm here because I need to be. I have no other income. I have to pay my rent every month. If I stay at home, I either die of the coronavirus or I starve to death. It's not easy.
For many, the blame points to the country's capital and its leadership for not investing enough in vaccines and managing the crisis better.
When the team is bad, it's the coach's fault. So here in Brazil, the top leader of the nation is to blame. In addition to not helping, the president has hindered the fight against coronavirus. Bolsonaro was the one who said the pandemic was ending. He said, so what? And it was just a little flu. It was the president who started spreading false information about medicines and said that vaccination was not safe.
President Jair Bolsonaro has said the country has done all it can in the face of the pandemic, and criticized lockdown measures, saying they do even more harm to the economic than the virus. In the meantime, Bolsonaro has signed measures to speed up the purchase of more vaccines. Edgar Maciel for WEWE News, São Paulo.
Zimbabwe's musicians have been struggling to make a living since the coronavirus pandemic prompted the government to ban concerts and other entertainment to prevent the spread of the virus. Some have even left their music behind and turned to farming. Columbus Mavunga reports from Mazoe, Zimbabwe.
Diana Samkangenya-Zema is a well-known award-winning musician who frequently performed in Zimbabwe and other African countries. But for now, she can be found at this farm about an hour's drive west of Harare. She is now farming because of COVID-19 and is not looking back.
So music is going to be my first love, but I need to survive. So that's why I had to venture into agriculture. So I love the whole stability which comes with it.
The 32-year-old Afro-pop singer co-owns the farm with her husband, Calvin Nyazema. They are putting in irrigation pipes and also have set up beehives to collect what she calls eucalyptus honey from their tree plantation. Zimbabwe's government recognizes the plight of musicians like her who have not been able to work because of the coronavirus lockdowns.
We are working on more of a stimulus package because we realize relief may never take us anywhere. But the government, through the Department of Social Welfare, continuously assists Zimbabweans that are in need.
But critics say the government needs to increase relief payments of $12 a month to families affected by the lockdowns. They say the funds are not enough to buy bread to feed a family for a month.
So you've got to be resourceful for your own sake. And you can bring in the rest of the family and say, let's work together and add to the income of the family with small things that each person can do.
Samukangenya Zema appears to be following that advice and plans to invest more in livestock if she gets funding. In the meantime, she's looking forward to a bountiful corn harvest from a 20-hectare field on her farm in the coming weeks. Columbus Mavungam for VOA News, Mazowe, Zimbabwe.
The European Commission's proposal to create a health passport inside the EU during the rest of the pandemic could help summer tourism in southern Europe. But with a slow vaccine rollout and infection rates on the rise, hopes are fading for a recovery anytime soon. Jonathan Spear narrates this report by Alfonso Bito in Barcelona.
The historic centre of Barcelona is very different than it used to be. With no tourists filling the streets, the people of Barcelona can bicycle through the city centre, something they could not do in 2019 when 12 million visitors poured in. Despite the extra space, many here are not celebrating.
I liked it more when there were foreigners here, because now there is poverty. The stores where many visitors would go, well, those stores are all closed. If I have to choose between one thing or the other, I would choose what is of immediate necessity, while at the same time, in principle, enjoy Barcelona.
Others meditate at historic sites, like this group that met online during the lockdown and now do yoga outdoors. But Barcelona's main tourist venues, such as La Rambla, the atmosphere is sombre. Hotels and shops are closed.
In Barcelona's old city, most residents work directly or indirectly in tourism, and there needs to be some movement.
Spain was the second most visited country in the world, only behind France and ahead of the United States. Tourism accounts for 12% of Spain's GDP. There is little hope here that the European Commission's proposal for COVID passports could rescue the industry this summer. Among Spain's leadership, there is unease.
I do not like the term passport because we are in the Schengen area, and I think mobility between countries in the European Union is governed by this framework. Therefore, what we want is to facilitate this mobility as soon as possible. For some sectors, such as the tourism sector, it is essential.
British nationals account for a large chunk of Spain's tourism inflows. With Britain no longer a part of the EU and questions emerging on whether the EU will honour British COVID passports, the uncertainty here only grows. For Alfonso Beato in Barcelona, John Spear, VOA News.
Would like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, how the pandemic has impacted visits to the traditional sites in the Holy Land. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54. Israel is keeping air travel restrictions in place because of the pandemic, and that means Christian pilgrims from all over the world will once again not be able to visit the traditional sites in the Holy Land during Easter this year. But Israeli tourism officials have been working on building new attractions for the faithful so that pilgrims will have much to see when they return. Linda Gradstein has our report.
According to Christian tradition, Jesus and his disciples did a lot of walking. And one path he may have walked after his crucifixion and resurrection is the new Emmaus Trail, an 18-kilometer path that goes from the Arab-Israeli town of Abu Ghosh to the city of Emmaus.
The Emmaus Trail is a pilgrim's trail. We don't have this very much in Israel. There is the Jesus Trail in Galilee. So it's more or less the same experience, with the slight difference that the Emmaus Trail, you can do it in half a day. It's on the way to the airport. It's a very nice way to end a pilgrimage, I think, to sort of recapitulate all what you have seen and to meditate on this going back to your country.
According to the Gospel of Luke, 2 pilgrims on the trail came across a man whom they eventually recognized as being the resurrected Jesus. The path also has a Roman road and ancient tombs. And walking the path is designed to be a COVID-safe activity.
It's very appropriate for Corona time because it is outdoor. See, I'm speaking without a mask, and probably this kind of pilgrimage, this kind of way to do your pilgrimage will develop. Outdoor pilgrimage, definitely.
When pilgrims are finished walking, they can visit the Terra Sancta Museum in Jerusalem's Old City, run by Roman Catholic Franciscan friars. Many of these artifacts have never before been displayed.
These 2 comes from France. They were gifts from the King of France, Le Roi Soleil, Louis XIV. This monstrance comes from Napoli, that was in the Kingdom of Spain. It's the gift from Charles III. And here you have gifts coming from Austria, from the 18th century.
The museum is being built below the Saint Saviour Franciscan Church in Jerusalem's Old City. Father Stefan says Easter offers a chance to reconnect with religion.
So everybody sees Jesus the Christ with his own eyes, with his own culture, but the faith is the same. So it's important to be able to see with the eyes of different people the same